What if I told you that the greatest threat to human happiness isn't war, poverty, or inequality, but perfection itself? We've been told to dream of a world without suffering, a society without crime, a life without struggle. But here's the opposite. Every attempt to create a utopia has ended in disaster. The pursuit of perfection has birthed the most brutal regimes in history, turned visionaries into tyrants, and crushed individuality under the weight of forced harmony. Utopia, a world where everything is perfect. No suffering, no injustice, no conflict. It sounds like paradise, but history tells a different story. From Plato's Republic to Karl Marx's vision of a classless society, from religious promised lands to Silicon Valley's dreams of AI-powered bliss, humans have always longed for a flawless world. And yet, every real attempt at utopia, whether socialist communes, totalitarian states, or experimental micro-societies, has collapsed under its own weight. Why? Because perfection is not just impossible, it is dangerous. A world without struggle is a world without growth. A society without conflict is a society without freedom. When utopian leaders attempt to erase all suffering, they inevitably erase choice, creativity, and dissent along with it. The Soviet Union, North Korea, and the bloody revolutions of the past all began with promises of utopia, only to end in oppression, stagnation, and suffering on an unimaginable scale. So perhaps the real question isn't how do we create utopia, but should we even try? If every road to perfection leads to tyranny, maybe the only way forward is to embrace imperfection, to build a world that strives for better, but never for flawless. History has already given us the answer. All utopias fail. And in failing, they remind us of the most fundamental truth about humanity. Our greatest strength is not in achieving perfection, but in forever chasing it. So let's dive deep into the topic. Since the beginning of civilization, humans have dreamed of a perfect world, a place without suffering, injustice, or conflict. A world where people live in harmony, free from struggle and pain. This dream of utopia has appeared in different forms throughout history, shaped by culture, philosophy, and human experience. But where did this idea come from? Why do people keep imagining a perfect society, even though no such place has ever existed? The origins of utopian thinking can be traced back to ancient civilizations, where philosophers, religious leaders, and political thinkers all tried to envision a better world. One of the earliest and most famous examples of utopian thinking comes from the Greek philosopher Plato. In his work, The Republic, written around 375 BCE, Plato described what he believed to be the ideal society. He imagined a structured world where people were divided into three classes: rulers, warriors, and workers. Each person would have a specific role based on their natural abilities, and the entire society would be governed by philosopher kings, wise rulers who would make decisions based on logic and justice rather than personal ambition. In this world, there would be no greed, no selfishness, and no corruption, because everything would be controlled by reason and order. However, Plato's vision was not just a hopeful dream, it was also deeply restrictive. People had no freedom to choose their own path in life. Everything was decided for them based on what was considered best for the society as a whole. Even family life was regulated, with children being raised collectively instead of by their parents. Plato's Utopia was an attempt to eliminate chaos and unfairness, but in doing so, it sacrificed personal freedom. This tension between order and individual liberty would appear again and again in later utopian ideas. Religious traditions also played a major role in shaping utopian thinking. Many ancient religions described a perfect paradise where the faithful would live in eternal peace. Christianity spoke of heaven as the ultimate utopia, a place without suffering or sin where believers would be rewarded for their faith. Similar ideas existed in Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism, where different forms of paradise were described as the ultimate goal of human life. These religious utopias were different from political ones because they were not meant to be created on earth. Instead, they were seen as a divine reward that could only be reached through spiritual devotion and moral behavior. But even though these utopias were not meant to exist in the physical world, they still influenced how people thought about creating a better society. Many religious movements throughout history tried to bring some version of this perfect world to life, often leading to the formation of strict, closed-off communities that tried to eliminate sin and corruption. During the Renaissance, a new kind of utopian thinking emerged. In 1516, the English writer and philosopher Thomas More published a book called Utopia, which described a fictional island society where everything was perfectly organized. There was no private property, no poverty, and no crime. Everyone worked for the common good, and people lived simple, virtuous lives. On the surface, it seemed like More was describing an ideal world, but Utopia was actually a satire, a way of criticizing the corruption and greed of European society at the time. More was not saying that a perfect society like his fictional island could really exist. Instead, he was showing how far real societies were from fairness and justice. His book introduced the word utopia to the world, but it also highlighted the main problem with the idea of a perfect society. Every utopia is based on the belief that human nature can be controlled and perfected. More understood that this was impossible, which is why his book was as much a warning as it was a vision of hope. By the 19th century, utopian thinking took a new turn with the rise of socialism and communism. Philosophers and political thinkers like Karl Marx believed that human suffering was caused by economic inequality, and that a truly fair and equal society could be created by eliminating private property and class divisions. Marx's vision was not just a fantasy, it was meant to be a practical guide to revolution. He argued that if workers took control of the economy and shared resources equally, society would eventually reach a stage of communism where there would be no need for governments or rulers because everyone would live in harmony. This was a powerful idea and it inspired revolutions across the world. But Marx's vision, like many before it, underestimated the complexity of human nature. Every attempt to build a communist utopia led to new problems, often creating oppressive regimes that tried to force people into an unnatural state of equality. Instead of eliminating suffering, these experiments often led to even greater suffering under totalitarian rule. In the modern world, utopian thinking has not disappeared, but it has changed form. One of the most enduring utopian ideas is the American dream. The belief that anyone, no matter their background, can achieve success and happiness through hard work and determination. Unlike older utopias, the American dream is not based on the idea of a perfect society. Instead, it is based on the idea of opportunity, where each individual has the chance to improve their life. This vision has been incredibly powerful, attracting millions of immigrants and inspiring generations of people to strive for success. But even this dream has its flaws. In reality, opportunity is not always equal, and success is often influenced by factors beyond a person's control. The American dream, like all utopian ideas, is built on hope and aspiration, but it does not guarantee fairness or perfection. Throughout history, utopian thinking has reflected humanity's desire for a better world. Whether through philosophy, religion, political theory, or cultural ideals, people have always imagined a society free from suffering and injustice. However, the deeper question is whether such a society can ever truly exist. Every utopia has been shaped by the limitations of human nature, the complexity of society, and the unintended consequences of trying to create perfection. As history has shown, the dream of utopia is powerful, but it is also dangerous because the pursuit of an impossible ideal often leads to outcomes far worse than the problems it was meant to solve. We have wondered whether human nature is naturally good or deeply flawed. This question lies at the heart of why utopias always fail. If people are naturally kind, fair, and cooperative, then in theory, a perfect society should be possible. But if people are selfish, power-hungry, or easily corruptible, then any attempt at utopia is doomed from the start. Philosophers have debated this for centuries, each offering different answers about what drives human behavior. Two of the most famous thinkers on this subject, Thomas Hobbes and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, had completely opposite views, and their ideas help us understand why utopia remains an unreachable dream. Hobbes believed that humans are naturally selfish and driven by their own desires. He described life without government or rules as nasty, brutish, and short. According to him, without strong control, people would constantly fight for power and resources, leading to chaos and violence. He argued that a powerful ruler or government was necessary to keep people in control. In contrast, Rousseau had a much more optimistic view. He believed that people were born good and that it was society that corrupted them. In his view, humans in their natural state were peaceful and cooperative, and it was only the creation of private property, inequality, and complex social systems that led to greed and conflict. While these two views seem completely opposite, both contain some truth. Humans are capable of kindness and generosity, but they are also capable of selfishness and cruelty. This contradiction is why utopias always collapse. Even in the most well-intentioned utopian societies, self-interest and personal ambition always find a way to disrupt the system. People do not all want the same things, and even if they did, their desires change over time. In an ideal world, everyone would work together for the common good, sharing resources and responsibilities equally. But in reality, some people will always want more than others. Some will work harder, some will take advantage of the system, and some will try to gain more power than others. Even in small communities that try to create utopian living, there are always disputes over leadership, decision-making, and fairness. History is full of examples where utopian projects failed because people could not suppress their natural desire for independence, competition, or control. Another major problem with utopia is that even if a perfect society could be created, people might not actually enjoy living in it. Struggle, ambition, and the pursuit of goals are what give life meaning. If everything is provided and there is no hardship, do people still feel motivated? Many stories and fictional depictions of utopias show that when people live in a world without challenges, they lose their sense of purpose. A life without obstacles might seem appealing at first, but over time, it can become empty and meaningless. Without the drive to improve, to compete, or to overcome struggles, people often feel lost. This is a deep problem with the very idea of utopia. By removing hardship, it also removes the drive that makes life meaningful. Psychological research has shown that humans quickly adapt to both good and bad circumstances, which is known as the hedonic treadmill effect. When people achieve something they desire, whether it is wealth, success, or a comfortable life, they feel happy for a while, but soon they return to their previous level of satisfaction and start seeking something new. This means that even if a perfect world were created, people would not stay content for long. They would begin to take perfection for granted, get used to it, and eventually become restless. In real life, this can be seen in people who achieve great success or extreme wealth. They often continue striving for more, even when they already have everything they need. This suggests that the human mind is not built for lasting satisfaction, which presents a huge problem for the idea of a permanent utopia. Human nature is too complex, too unpredictable, and too restless to ever be contained within a perfect system. While we may always dream of utopia, we are not built to live in one. Many leaders and thinkers have believed that if society was carefully planned and controlled, it could be made perfect. The idea behind planned societies is simple. If the government takes full responsibility for distributing resources, making decisions, and ensuring fairness, then inequality and suffering will disappear. But in reality, these attempts have always failed, often leading to the exact opposite of what they intended. Instead of creating a world of fairness and prosperity, planned societies have resulted in oppression, economic collapse, and suffering on an unimaginable scale. The reason for this failure lies in the complexity of human societies. No single person or group can control every aspect of life without unintended consequences. The more a government tries to plan and control, the more it restricts freedom, innovation, and individual choices. History has shown that the dream of a centrally planned utopia always turns into a nightmare. One of the most famous examples of this failure is the Soviet Union. After the Russian Revolution in 1917, the new communist government, led by Lenin and later Stalin, promised to create a society where everyone would be equal. Private property was abolished, businesses were taken over by the state, and wealth was supposed to be shared among all citizens. On paper, this sounded like a fair and just system, but in practice it led to disaster. Without competition or personal ownership, people had little motivation to work hard or be innovative. Farmers were forced to give up their land and join collective farms. But because there was no personal reward for hard work, food production collapsed. The government tried to fix this by setting strict rules on farming and industry, but the more they controlled, the worse things got. In the 1930s, millions of people died in famines caused by these failed policies. At the same time, Stalin's government became more and more oppressive, using secret police, forced labor camps, and mass executions to maintain control. What started as an attempt to create equality turned into one of the most brutal regimes in history. A similar story unfolded in communist China under Mao Zedong. In the 1950s, Mao launched a campaign called the Great Leap Forward, which was meant to transform China into an industrial superpower through central planning. Farmers were ordered to stop traditional farming and instead follow government instructions on how to grow crops and produce steel. But these policies were based on unrealistic ideas, and when they failed, the government refused to admit it. Local officials, afraid of being punished, lied about food production numbers, creating a false illusion of success while people starved. The result was one of the worst famines in history, with tens of millions of people dying from hunger. Later, During the Cultural Revolution, Mao attempted to create a utopian society by eliminating old traditions, intellectuals, and anyone who disagreed with his vision. Instead of progress, this led to chaos, violence, and the destruction of China's cultural heritage. Like the Soviet Union, Communist China's attempt at a perfect society only brought suffering and oppression. North Korea is one of the most extreme examples of a failed planned society. For decades, its government has controlled every aspect of life, from what people can say to what they can eat. It presents itself as a utopia, with images of happy citizens and perfect cities, but in reality, it is one of the most repressive and impoverished countries in the world. The government decides where people can live, what jobs they can have, and even what hairstyles are allowed. Most of the population struggles with poverty and food shortages, while the ruling elite enjoys luxury. There is no freedom of speech, no independent media, and no escape for ordinary people. Those who question the system are sent to brutal labor camps or executed. North Korea is a perfect example of how a forced utopia always becomes a dystopia, because the only way to maintain control in a planned society is through extreme oppression. Human societies are far too complex to be controlled by a single authority. People have different needs, desires, and talents, and no central government can account for every decision that needs to be made. The economist Friedrich Hayek described this as the knowledge problem. He argued that no government or leader, no matter how intelligent or well-intentioned, can gather and process all the information needed to run an entire society efficiently. In free societies, millions of people make decisions based on their own knowledge and circumstances, which allows economies to adapt and grow. But in planned societies, a small group of people tries to make every decision for everyone, which always leads to mistakes, shortages, and inefficiency. Even with modern technology, no government can predict every future challenge, understand every individual need, or manage every aspect of life without unintended consequences. Every attempt at a planned society starts with the promise of fairness and ends with control and oppression. The reason is simple. When a government takes full control, it must constantly increase its power to maintain order. Any disagreement is seen as a threat, and any failure is covered up instead of corrected. This is why every centrally planned society in history has eventually collapsed or turned into a dictatorship. The lesson from history is clear. Human societies cannot be controlled like machines. The more we try to force perfection, the more we destroy the very things that make life meaningful: freedom, creativity, and the ability to choose our own paths. Every utopia needs leadership. Someone has to make decisions, enforce rules, and ensure that society runs smoothly. But the moment power is given to a person or a group, corruption begins to take root. This is one of the biggest reasons why utopias always fail. No matter how noble the intentions of the leaders, power changes people. It makes them see themselves as more important than others. And over time, they start to believe that they deserve more than the rest. Even in societies built on the idea of equality, leaders find ways to separate themselves from ordinary people, enjoying privileges while still claiming to serve the greater good. This is why every attempt at utopia eventually turns into something far from its original vision. The leaders who were supposed to create a fair and just society end up becoming the very thing they once opposed. This pattern has been captured perfectly in George Orwell's novel Animal Farm, which tells the story of animals who overthrow their human owner and create a society where all animals are supposed to be equal. In the beginning, the new leaders promise fairness, shared work, and a better life for everyone. But as time passes, the pigs who take charge of the farm begin to change the rules to benefit themselves. They take extra food, live in better conditions, and justify their privileges by claiming that their leadership is necessary for the survival of the farm. In the end, the animals find themselves in a society just as oppressive as the one they had before, with a new ruling class that is just as corrupt. Orwell's famous line, "All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others," perfectly captures how power distorts even the most well-meaning revolutions. This is not just fiction. It has happened in every major utopian experiment in history. Lord Acton, a 19th century historian and philosopher, famously said, "Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." His words have been proven true time and time again. When leaders have unlimited control, they eventually begin to see themselves as above the law. At first, they may make small exceptions for themselves, believing that their power allows them to make better decisions than ordinary people. But as time passes, they demand more obedience, eliminate opposition, and use their position to secure personal gain. The most extreme examples of this can be seen in dictatorships that started with the promise of equality and justice. Leaders who once claimed to fight for the people became ruthless rulers who silenced anyone who questioned them. Stalin, Mao Zedong, and other totalitarian leaders all rose to power with utopian promises, only to create societies where fear and control became the foundation of daily life. Even in less extreme cases, leaders in democracies and smaller communities often show the same tendency, using their positions for personal benefit while justifying it as necessary for the greater good. The deeper issue is that trusting human rulers to maintain fairness and justice is itself a utopian idea. Human nature does not allow for perfect rulers because every person has personal desires, biases, and ambitions. Even the best leaders are influenced by self-interest, and even the most honest rulers eventually face temptations that challenge their morality. Some may start with good intentions, but the pressure of power, the need to maintain control, and the fear of losing authority often push them toward corruption. If history has shown anything, it is that no leader, no matter how wise or virtuous, can resist the pull of power forever. The problem is not just individual leaders, it is the nature of leadership itself. The moment one person or group is given authority over others, they begin to see themselves as different, and the gap between ruler and ruled starts to grow. This is why every utopian vision that relies on leadership is doomed to fail. A perfect society would require perfect leaders, but perfect leaders do not exist. Some may argue that strong rules, checks, and balances can prevent corruption, but history has shown that those in power always find ways to bypass limitations, silence critics, and maintain their control. Utopian thinkers have often imagined societies where leaders are selfless and wise, where rulers make decisions only for the good of the people. But this idea ignores the reality of human nature. Power does not create wise and selfless leaders. It creates people who believe they deserve more than the rest. This is why every utopia eventually turns into something else. What begins as a dream of equality and fairness ends in oppression, privilege, and a ruling class that benefits at the expense of everyone else. The dream of a perfect society will always remain just that, a dream, because human nature makes it impossible for power to exist without corruption. The dream of a perfect society seems beautiful at first. A world without crime, without injustice, without suffering. A place where everyone is equal, kind, and free. But the pursuit of perfection has a dark side. When people try to force perfection onto a society, they end up destroying the very things that make life meaningful. Freedom, individuality, and the ability to make mistakes. Perfection is not something that can be imposed without consequences. History has shown that every time leaders have tried to enforce a flawless society, it has led to fear, oppression, and violence. The problem is simple. Perfection means different things to different people. What one person sees as an ideal world, another might see as a nightmare. And because no society can be perfect for everyone, those in power always decide whose version of perfection will be enforced. The result is that anyone who does not fit into that vision is removed, silenced, or forced to change. In the pursuit of utopia, leaders often create something far worse, a society where disagreement is punished, where individuality is erased, and where people live in constant fear of making mistakes. One of the clearest examples of this was the French Revolution and the Reign of Terror. The revolution began with the hope of creating a fair and equal society where the monarchy and aristocracy would no longer have special privileges and where ordinary people would finally have rights. It was a utopian vision of democracy, freedom, and justice. But as the revolutionaries took control, they became obsessed with eliminating anyone who did not fully support their ideals. Led by Robespierre and the radical Jacobins, the government decided that anyone who was not fully committed to the revolution was an enemy. People were arrested for the smallest signs of disloyalty, and thousands were executed by guillotine, often without fair trials. Fear spread throughout the country, and even the revolutionaries themselves were not safe. Many of those who once led the movement were later accused of not being revolutionary enough, and were executed by their own comrades. The pursuit of a perfect society had turned into a brutal dictatorship where paranoia and violence ruled. Instead of achieving equality and justice, the revolution collapsed into chaos, proving that the attempt to enforce perfection often leads to its exact opposite. This same problem can be seen in a simple thought experiment. Imagine a society where crime no longer exists, where everyone follows the rules, and no one ever does anything wrong. At first, this sounds like a utopia. But now imagine how this could actually be achieved. One way would be to control people's thoughts, to make sure that no one even thinks about committing a crime. If technology existed to monitor and erase dangerous thoughts before they turned into actions, crime could be eliminated entirely. But in doing so, people would lose the ability to think freely. They would live under constant surveillance, afraid of even considering ideas that went against the rules. In this world, there would be no crime, but there would also be no freedom. People would not be choosing to be good, they would be forced into it. If a society removes human choice, can it still be called a utopia? Or does the price of perfection make it something else entirely? This experiment reveals a deeper truth. The more a society tries to eliminate all flaws, the more it destroys the very things that make people human. This problem is not just something of the past. The dangers of forcing ideological purity can still be seen in modern society. Today, people are often pressured to conform to strict political, social, or moral beliefs. Those who disagree with popular ideas can face public shaming, social exclusion, or even the loss of their careers. This is sometimes called cancel culture, where people are punished for opinions that do not fit within a certain worldview. While the goal may be to promote justice or protect vulnerable groups, the effect is often to create fear and silence open discussion. In extreme cases, political movements become so focused on enforcing their vision of morality that they begin to treat anyone who questions them as an enemy. Throughout history, this has led to dangerous forms of extremism, where entire groups of people are labeled as evil simply because they do not perfectly align with an ideology. Whether it happens in politics, religion, or social movements, the pattern is always the same. The desire for purity leads to division, hostility, and oppression. The pursuit of a perfect world will always come at a cost. The more a society tries to force perfection, the more it sacrifices freedom, diversity, and the ability to question authority. History has shown that the moment a group believes they have found the one true path to a flawless society, they begin to justify extreme actions in the name of that vision. The French Revolution, totalitarian regimes, and ideological movements throughout history have all proven that perfection cannot be achieved without control, and control always leads to oppression. The real question is whether the cost of perfection is worth it, or if a flawed but free world is the best we can hope for. Perhaps true progress does not come from eliminating all flaws, but from learning to live with them. One of the biggest challenges of creating a utopia is the economy. A perfect society should be able to provide enough food, housing, and resources for everyone. But history has shown that no matter how carefully a society is planned, economic problems always appear. The main issue is incentives. In the real world, people work hard because they need to earn a living, gain personal success, or achieve something meaningful. But in a utopian society where everything is provided for free, why would people still work hard? If everyone is guaranteed food, shelter, and comfort, no matter how much effort they put in, then what motivation do they have to contribute? Some people might still work out of passion or duty, but many would not. Over time, this leads to laziness and inefficiency, and when too many people stop working hard, the entire system begins to fall apart. This is one of the biggest reasons why economic utopias have never lasted. Without a strong incentive to work, production slows down, shortages appear, and eventually, the utopian dream collapses under its own weight. Another major problem is resource distribution. Even in societies that claim to treat everyone equally, resources are never shared in a truly fair way. Some jobs require more effort or skill than others, but if everyone is paid the same or given the same rewards, people start to feel resentful. If a doctor who spends years training receives the same benefits as someone doing a simple job, what is the point of going through all that effort? If someone works longer hours but receives no extra reward, what is the motivation to keep working hard? Over time, this lack of fairness leads to frustration and decline in productivity. Even in the most well-intentioned utopian experiments, this issue has always appeared. People naturally compare themselves to others, and when they see unfairness, they lose motivation. No system has ever found a perfect way to balance equality and effort, which is why utopian economies always struggle. History is filled with examples of small communities and socialist experiments that tried to create a utopian economy. Many communes, both religious and political, have attempted to build societies where everyone shares everything equally and works together for the common good. In the 19th and 20th centuries, many socialist groups formed communes where private property was abolished and all resources were shared. At first, these communities often thrived because people were excited about the vision of a better world. But as time passed, problems began to emerge. Some people worked harder than others, yet received no extra reward. Some took advantage of the system and contributed little while still benefiting from the work of others. Conflicts over leadership, responsibility, and fairness became common, and many of these communities collapsed within a few years. Larger socialist economies, such as the Soviet Union and Maoist China, faced the same issues but on a national scale. When private property and competition were removed, productivity declined, and shortages became common. Eventually, these economies either collapsed or had to introduce capitalist elements to survive. While capitalism is often criticized for creating inequality, it has proven to be more effective than utopian economic models. The reason is that capitalism is based on incentives. People are rewarded based on how much they contribute, which encourages innovation, hard work, and economic growth. In a capitalist system, businesses compete to provide better goods and services, which leads to higher quality products and technological advancements. However, capitalism also has flaws. It creates wealth gaps, where some people become extremely rich while others struggle to get by. It also leads to problems like exploitation and environmental damage. But despite these issues, capitalism has managed to sustain economies in a way that utopian systems have not. The key difference is flexibility. Unlike planned economies, capitalist systems allow for adaptation and change based on supply and demand. Utopian economic models fail because they assume that human behavior can be perfectly controlled, but capitalism works because it accepts human nature as it is. The idea of a perfect economic system remains a dream because human nature is too complex for a single system to provide fairness, motivation, and efficiency all at once. Every attempt at economic utopia has faced the same basic problems: lack of incentives, unfair distribution, and eventual collapse due to inefficiency. Capitalism is far from perfect, but it has proven to be the most sustainable economic model so far. The challenge for the future is not to create a flawless system, but to find ways to improve the systems we already have while understanding that perfection in economics, like in all areas of life, will always remain out of reach. One of the biggest reasons utopias fail is that people are different. They have different values, beliefs, desires, and ways of life. What seems perfect to one person might feel like a nightmare to another. A society that forces everyone to follow the same rules, think the same way, and live the same kind of life can never truly be a utopia for everyone. This is the fundamental problem with trying to create a perfect world. Human nature is not uniform. Some people value tradition while others want progress. Some prioritize freedom while others prefer security. Some believe happiness comes from personal achievement, while others believe it comes from community and shared purpose. A utopia that tries to satisfy all these different perspectives at once quickly runs into contradictions. To make one group happy, another group often has to sacrifice something important to them. The more a society tries to enforce a single vision of utopia, the more people it leaves out, which is why so many attempts at perfect societies have ended in division, conflict, or collapse. Religion has played a major role in shaping utopian ideas throughout history, but it has also been a major source of conflict. Many religions describe a perfect world, whether it is the Christian idea of heaven, the Islamic concept of paradise, or the Hindu and Buddhist belief in spiritual enlightenment. Religious movements have often tried to bring these ideals into the real world by creating societies based on strict moral or spiritual rules. Theocracies or governments ruled by religious authorities are one example of this. They attempt to create a utopia by enforcing religious laws, but they often fail because they do not allow for diversity of belief. People who follow different faiths, interpret religious teachings differently, or simply want to live in a more secular way are often persecuted. In some cases, religious utopias have led to extreme oppression. The Puritans who settled in North America, for example, wanted to build a pure Christian society free from corruption. But they ended up creating a strict and unforgiving community where those who did not follow their rules were punished or exiled. In more extreme cases, theocracies like Taliban-controlled Afghanistan or Iran's religious government have imposed harsh restrictions on personal freedoms in the name of creating a morally perfect society. These examples show that religious utopias often fail because they cannot accommodate different beliefs and ways of life without becoming oppressive. Another major conflict in utopian societies is the struggle between freedom and security. A truly free society allows people to make their own choices, live as they want, and express their own opinions. But with total freedom comes risk. Some people will make harmful choices, break laws, or create instability. On the other hand, a society that prioritizes security tries to control behavior to prevent chaos, but in doing so, it often takes away personal freedoms. Many utopian ideas lean toward extreme security, believing that a perfect society can only exist if people follow strict rules and live in a highly organized way. But history has shown that when security is prioritized too much, it leads to oppressive systems where individuality is lost. For example, in authoritarian states like North Korea, the government controls almost every aspect of people's lives in the name of stability and order. While this prevents certain kinds of chaos, it also removes basic human freedoms, making life rigid and controlled rather than happy and fulfilling. The challenge for any society is finding a balance between allowing people to be free while also maintaining enough order to function. No society has ever found the perfect balance, which is another reason why utopian dreams always fall short. One interesting case study that provides insight into utopian ideas is the Amish community. The Amish have created a society that rejects many aspects of modern life in order to maintain a simple, traditional way of living. They focus on community, self-sufficiency, and religious values, avoiding most forms of technology, modern entertainment, and individualistic lifestyles. In many ways, the Amish live in what could be considered a mini-utopia. Their communities are peaceful, tightly connected, and free from many of the problems that exist in mainstream society, such as crime, materialism, and extreme social pressure. But at the same time, the Amish way of life is extremely limited. People who are born into the community do not have much choice about how they live. If they decide to leave, they are often cut off from their families and support systems. There is little room for personal freedom, and those who do not fully accept the Amish way of life have few options. This raises an important question about utopian societies. Can a society truly be considered a utopia if people are not free to choose their own path? The Amish model shows that while a highly structured and traditional society can create stability, it comes at the cost of individual freedom and progress. This is why even the most successful utopian experiments remain small and limited. The dream of a perfect society is appealing, but it ignores the reality that people are diverse. No single way of life can satisfy everyone, and any attempt to enforce one vision of utopia will always lead to resistance, oppression, or exclusion. Religious utopias have failed because they do not allow for different beliefs. Political utopias have struggled with the balance between freedom and security. Even small, controlled communities like the Amish show that stability often comes at the cost of personal choice. Utopia, by definition, requires a society where everyone is happy, but as long as people value different things, no single society can provide happiness for all. This is why the dream of utopia will always remain just that, a dream. The best that any society can do is to create systems that allow for diversity, freedom, and progress while accepting that perfection is impossible. For centuries, people have imagined that technology could solve all of humanity's problems and create a perfect world. The idea of a technological utopia is based on the belief that science, automation, and artificial intelligence can eliminate suffering, remove inequality, and make life easier for everyone. In theory, advanced machines could take over all hard labor, artificial intelligence could make perfect decisions for society, and genetic engineering could eliminate diseases and create healthier, smarter humans. But history has shown that technology alone does not guarantee a better world. While it can improve life in many ways, it also introduces new dangers. Every major technological advancement has brought both benefits and risks. And when technology is used to control or manipulate society, it often leads to oppression rather than utopia. The belief that technology can fix all human problems ignores a deeper issue. Human nature itself is flawed, and no amount of innovation can change that. One of the biggest hopes for a technological utopia comes from artificial intelligence and automation. Many believe that AI could take over jobs, freeing people from work and allowing them to pursue creative and fulfilling lives. Machines could provide solutions to complex problems, manage economies fairly, and make societies run more smoothly. Some even imagine a world where AI could govern better than human leaders, eliminating corruption and inefficiency. Automation could also remove the burden of hard labor, creating a world where no one has to struggle to survive. But while AI and automation have the potential to improve efficiency, they also bring serious problems. If machines take over most jobs, how will people find purpose in life? Work is not just about survival. It gives people a sense of identity and achievement. A world where AI makes all decisions could also become dangerously unbalanced. Who programs these machines? What values will they follow? If AI controls every aspect of life, individuals may lose their freedom to make choices for themselves. Instead of creating utopia, advanced technology could lead to a world where human decisions are no longer necessary, making people feel powerless in their own lives. Science fiction has explored these dangers in many ways, one of the most famous being Aldous Huxley's novel, Brave New World. In this vision of the future, technology has created a seemingly perfect society. There is no war, no suffering, and no hardship. People are kept happy through genetic engineering, constant entertainment, and a drug called soma, which removes all negative emotions. But beneath the surface, this world is deeply disturbing. There is no true freedom, no individuality, and no deeper purpose in life. People are conditioned from birth to accept their roles in society, and those who do not fit in are isolated or removed. This vision of technological utopia reveals its darker side. When technology is used to create stability at all costs, it often leads to control rather than true happiness. If a society depends on artificial pleasures and social engineering to maintain order, does it still have real human meaning? Brave New World warns that when people give up struggle, challenge, and the ability to think for themselves, they lose the very things that make them human. One of the most controversial aspects of technological utopian thinking is genetic engineering. With advances in DNA editing, it is now possible to modify human genes before birth. In the future, people may be able to create designer babies, selecting traits such as intelligence, physical strength, or even personality. Some argue that this could eliminate genetic diseases and improve the overall health of humanity. But this raises serious ethical questions. If only the rich can afford genetic enhancements, will society become even more divided? Will people still be valued for their uniqueness? Or will human beings become products, designed and manufactured like machines? In a world where perfection is possible, will those who are born naturally be considered inferior? While genetic engineering has the potential to improve life, it also introduces the risk of creating a rigid, controlled society where people are judged not by their character or achievements, but by the genetic advantages they were given before birth. The attempt to create a biologically perfect utopia could lead to a world where true diversity and individuality are lost. The biggest flaw in the idea of a technological utopia is that it assumes technology can fix human nature. But history has shown that no invention, no matter how advanced, can change fundamental human behavior. Technology can provide new tools, but it does not remove greed, selfishness, or the desire for power. The internet was supposed to bring people together. Yet it has also created division, misinformation, and social isolation. Social media was designed to connect people, but it has led to mental health crises, political manipulation, and loss of privacy. Even medical advances, which have extended life and eliminated many diseases, have created new ethical dilemmas about how to distribute healthcare fairly. Every technological advancement solves one problem while creating another. The core issue is that technology does not exist separately from human nature. It reflects it. If people are flawed, the societies they build with technology will also be flawed. No amount of artificial intelligence, automation, or genetic engineering can change that reality. The dream of a technological utopia is based on the hope that science and innovation can eliminate all of humanity's problems. But while technology has made life easier, healthier, and more connected, it has never created a perfect world. Every advancement comes with new challenges, and the more technology is used to control or engineer society, the more it risks becoming a tool of oppression rather than liberation. The real issue is not whether technology can create utopia, but whether utopia itself is even possible. As long as human nature remains the same, no amount of progress will ever lead to a world without conflict, inequality, or struggle. Technology can improve life, but it cannot make us perfect. And perhaps that is the lesson. Perfection is not what makes life meaningful. The ability to choose, to struggle, and to grow is what truly defines us. The idea of utopia has fascinated people for centuries, but history has shown that every attempt to create a perfect society has failed. The question then becomes, should we keep trying? If utopias always collapse, if they always lead to oppression or stagnation, is the pursuit of a flawless world even worth it? Some argue that utopian thinking is dangerous because it creates unrealistic expectations and often leads to extreme measures in the name of achieving perfection. Others believe that even though a perfect society may be impossible, striving for something better is what pushes humanity forward. The key may lie in understanding the difference between progress and perfection. Perfection assumes that there is one ultimate version of society where all problems are solved and no further improvements are needed. But history and human nature suggest that this is not how the world works. Societies evolve, adapt, and face new challenges, and what seems perfect today may not be suitable for tomorrow. The goal, then, should not be to create a utopia that will last forever, but to continue improving the world in ways that make life better without forcing an artificial version of perfection onto people. One way to explore the possibility of a better society is through small-scale utopian experiments. While large-scale utopias have repeatedly failed, there are examples of smaller communities that have successfully built sustainable and harmonious ways of living. Intentional communities, eco-villages, and cooperative societies have all attempted to create better ways of organizing life, often focusing on shared resources, environmental sustainability, and collective decision-making. Some of these have lasted for decades, proving that certain utopian principles can work on a smaller scale. However, even these communities face challenges. Many struggle with internal conflicts, leadership disputes, or economic sustainability. What works for a small, close-knit group may not be scalable to an entire nation or the world. Additionally, people within these communities must often make significant sacrifices, giving up personal freedoms or technological advancements in order to maintain their version of an ideal society. This suggests that while elements of utopian thinking can be applied successfully in limited settings, they do not provide a model for a large-scale, universally applicable utopia. Another way to think about the future is through sustainable cities. Many urban planners and futurists are working on ways to create cities that are environmentally friendly, socially inclusive, and economically balanced. These efforts focus on reducing pollution, improving public transportation, creating green spaces, and designing communities where people can live healthier and more connected lives. While these efforts are not utopian in the traditional sense, they aim to improve the quality of life in ways that align with some utopian ideals. The difference is that sustainable cities do not claim to offer a perfect world, but rather a better one. They recognize that no system will ever be flawless, but that thoughtful planning and innovation can create environments that make daily life more fulfilling. This approach may offer a more realistic path forward, one that embraces progress without the impossible goal of absolute perfection. Ultimately, the best we can hope for is a world that keeps improving but never reaches a final, fixed state of perfection. Human nature is too complex, society is too unpredictable, and history has shown that utopias, when taken to their extremes, often lead to unintended consequences. Instead of chasing an impossible dream, the real challenge is to keep moving forward, learning from mistakes, adapting to new realities, and finding ways to make life better for as many people as possible. The pursuit of utopia should not be about creating a society that never changes, but about constantly striving for progress, while accepting that perfection will always remain just out of reach. Perhaps the real beauty of life is not in reaching a final destination, but in the journey itself, where each generation builds on the knowledge and struggles of the past to create a future that, while never perfect, is always moving towards something better.